This is John Jackson Miller. I'm the founder and curator of Comichron.com, the world's largest public database of comic book sales figures, here with the sales charts preview for September 2018. As always, these charts are provided to us by Diamond Comic Distributors, and then we work a little magic on it to come up with the overall dollar figure for the month and year. And then, of course, later on we'll have the sales estimates on Comichron.com for the individual comics. As we mentioned in last month's video, this is the start of the 23rd year that I've been doing these figures monthly involving the Diamond charts. The very first ones I did were for September of 1996, and that was in Comics Retailer magazine. The story for September 2018 is the recovery continues, now including graphic novels. Now, of course, the story of this year has been one of recovery, to go back to where we were at the fall of 2016. This was at the end of the DC Rebirth launch. The comics market had peaked that summer. We were down 6% in the fourth quarter, and then just down 3% in the first quarter of 2017. But then that accelerated as we got into the summer of 2017 with Marvel's Secret Empire. And then we began to see that DC is not able to match the numbers that it had during Rebirth in the third quarter of 2017. At the low point, the summer quarter, the third quarter of 2017, was down 16% year over year. That was the low point. We began to see the trajectory improving through the end of 2017, although things were still going down 10% in the fourth quarter. And then the first quarter of 2018 down 9%. But as I've remarked in the previous videos here this year, the second quarter of 2018 officially ends the recession as it's defined by economists. 2 quarters in a row of negative growth constitutes a recession. The second quarter breaks that with an increase of 1%. And now, of course, at the end of September, we get yet another quarter of growth. And in fact, it's significantly better growth. It's up by 6% over that pretty bad quarter in 2017. So, we still have not recovered to the point where we were at in 2016 during, Rebirth. But it is definitely an improvement, and as you can see, at least for the last year, it's been going in the right direction. Now, when we look at the month-to-month sales charts, we see that the numbers here are all negative. Why are they negative? It's for a very simple reason that the month of August 2018 had an extra shipping week. So we will disregard this chart. There's usually about a 15%, somewhere between a 10 and a 15% benefit to having the fifth week in a month. And so, comparing September to August is not particularly helpful, although, again, it compares fairly well considering that it's got one less week. It was just off 5.3% overall. No, the more important figure is going to be comparing September 2018 versus September 2017. Now, September 2017 and September 2018 each had 4 shipping weeks, 4 Wednesdays, so it is an even comparison. We see that on the dollar side of things, comics are up 0.75%, graphic novels are up significantly, 12%, and the total of comics and graphic novels together is up close to 4%. And so that's all 3 categories in dollars up. Unit sales, graphic novel units up 15%, and I'll get into why in just a moment. And comics unit sales down 6.5%. Although, as I'll get into as well, there are reasons for that, and have been reasons for that all year. Comparing the third quarter of 2018 versus the second quarter, as mentioned, that second quarter was the first increase quarter that we had seen in some time. Now, the third quarter of 2018 is an increase over that. Now, moving on to the more important comparison, which is the third quarter of 2018 versus the third quarter of 2017, we see, as mentioned, that we are up almost 6%. And again, all three categories in dollars are up. Comics and graphic novels together are up. Graphic novels themselves are up 2%. That is a major change and one we have been waiting for. I had been mentioning all along that the graphic novel sales are going to lag comic sales when it comes to improvement because what do graphic novels do? They collect the comics that people are interested in. And so if there's been a period where the comics have been less popular, several months down the line, the graphic novels are not going to sell as well because people are not going to want those collected editions. Here we see graphic novels beginning to echo the improvements that we saw earlier this spring in comics. And again, comics in dollars up 7.5% almost. Units have just about caught up from quarter to quarter. Now, actually, the last 6 months of 2018, counting the second and third quarters together, the industry is constituted by the direct market, the comic shops, is actually ahead by $9 million over the same time in 2017. And when we look at the entire year, that brings in that first quarter, and the first quarter was where all of the damage was this year. And so, we're actually down about $2.2 million overall, this year versus last year to date. We're looking at $389 million worth of comics and graphic novels being ordered by retailers in North America. And again, that is down 0.55%. But that particular ratio there, that fraction has been decreasing all summer long. We're now at half of 1%. We were at 1% at the end of August. We were down 2% at the end of July. We were down 4% at the end of June. And so, we're just getting there a little at a time. And it is very likely that October is going to see the market go ahead for the year, and that is because October has 5 shipping weeks versus October of 2017, which had 4. Now, obviously, we're going to give that benefit back in November because November is what had the 5th shipping week in 2017. However, it's a little more important to have the extra week in October versus November. November, with Thanksgiving in there, has sort of a shortened shipping schedule. And, if we figure that we're going to be more or less even by the time we get to the end of the year with December, and in terms of whether it's going to be up or down for the year, last December was horrible. It should not be difficult for the comics market to beat its December numbers from 2017. And thus, the hope would be that we would wind up slightly ahead for the year. Moving on to market share, we will find that Marvel for the month of September is close to 40% dollars, DC 29%, Image a little over 10%, greatly helped by its graphic novel contributions this month. Dark Horse close to 4%, IDW 3%, and then the bottom 5 in the top 10, Boom, Dynamite, Viz, Oni, and Titan. And one of the things that we're able to say by looking inside the numbers is that Marvel was up 9% year over year. This is in part helped by the fact that Marvel had more comics out this September versus last September. DC was about even year over year, September versus September. DC actually had fewer comics out in the month of September this year than last year. Image had about the same number of comics that DC had out in the month, and that is not something that happens very often. Marvel, as it turns out, has the top-selling comic book of the month. This is Return of Wolverine #1. It is the #1 comic book in both units and dollars. Moving on, we see that Marvel has the top book for the month, but DC has the next 4 slots in the top 5. Heroes in Crisis #1 is in second place. Doomsday Clock #7 is in third place. Batman #55 is in fourth place. And then Batman Damned, which is the controversial book from the DC Black Label line. Issue 1 of that is in 5th place. And again, as we see, we're at $45.18 million, up 4% versus the previous September, and up 6% versus the third quarter of 2017. Looking further at the top 10, this is in units. We see that number 6 is the 54th issue of Batman. Thanos Legacy 1 from Marvel is in 7th. Fantastic Four 2 is in 8th. That's following Fantastic Four 1 being the number 1 comic book of the month of August. And then 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man in 9th and 10th. Now, when we look at this list by dollars, we will see that we still have Return of Wolverine number 1 in 1st place, but Batman Damn number 1 is in 2nd. We see Doomsday Clock in 3rd, Heroes in Crisis 4th, Thanos Legacy leaps up to 5th. Spider-Geddon makes an appearance here. This is issue 0 of that in 7th place. And then the only other title which isn't already on the unit sales list is in 10th place. That's Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1. Now, we mentioned before that the graphic novel section of the business is the part that has not been doing as well over the last year and a half, and that we have expected it to come back a bit later than comics. This particular month was a big month for graphic novels because Image has a trifecta. They have Saga Volume 9 as the number 1 graphic novel in units and dollars, but then they also have a new Walking Dead, Volume 30, New World Order, in 2nd place, and Monstrous Volume 3 is the 3rd place graphic novel. It is followed by the collection of Oblivion Song, Volume 1, also by Image. The Batman Catwoman Wedding Album hardcover is in 5th. Franklin Richards is in 6th. DC Superhero Girls in 7th. Descender Volume 6 from Image is 8th. Star Wars Darth Vader Volume 3 is in 9th. And then the deluxe edition hardcover of Action Comics 1000 is in 10th. Now, the dollar chart looks somewhat different, but we'll notice that the same 3 titles are in the top 3 slots from Image: Saga, Walking Dead, and Monstrous. And this is significant because this is a chart that, again, usually is dominated by the big omnibus editions, $50, $100 or more. So to have these titles in the top 3, that does tell you that they're doing some pretty significant numbers. Batman by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale Omnibus is in 4th. This led in reorders one of the weeks during the month. Spider-Man vs. Venom Omnibus hardcover is in 5th. Absolute Batman The Killing Joke hardcover is in 6th. Marvel has another Omnibus Earth X trilogy in 7th. The Batman Catwoman Wedding Album hardcover is in 8th. Dark Knight 3, The Master Race, is 9th. And Marvel Masterworks Killraven at $100 is in 10th. And now looking at the new releases, what shipped this particular month, we will see that about 2% fewer comics came out this September versus the previous September. And this is significant because, again, we've mentioned that in the past, the comics unit sales have appeared to lag behind those of 2017 from the sheer numbers on paper. But there are a few things going on. There were a lot of 25-cent editions for Image's 25th anniversary that were in the 2017 list. Also, there was a lot of Marvel overshipping in the first part of 2017, which thus far has not been a major factor in 2018. So those two things distorted unit sales in favor of 2017. Also, DC Nation Zero, which shipped 1 million copies, or so we are told, was not counted with the unit sales in 2018. It was considered to be a promotional item. Then another major thing that is going on is that in 2017 through September, there had been 4,446 comic books released. And to date this year, through the end of September, only 4,206. So that's 240 fewer comic books, 5.5% fewer comic books released. And obviously, that's going to be reflected. Now we'll see here that Marvel has 99 comics shipping in September. That's 10 more than they had the previous year. DC had 10 fewer comics shipping in the month of September. And Image, as mentioned earlier, did catch up to DC. And the last time that Image and DC had the same number of releases was September of 2015. So that was some time ago. That is the preliminary sales report for the month. We will see the final estimates on Comichron a few days after the posting of this video. And you can find those and the sales figures for any given month going all the way back to the 1990s on any of our monthly comic sales pages on Comichron. And you can find that just by going to the monthly comic sales button on any page of the site. So that's the view from September 2018, and until next time, we'll see you in the comic shop.